In next August 16, coming up, in a 4-year university, you can conceal carry. You cannot open carry, and the university can formulate a policy that they have to turn into the legislature to get approval, but it's very vague on what is a policy. So that's going to be hashed out over the next couple of years. That the university can say, we don't want, our policy is not to let concealed weapons. Yes, sir. We'll get to it. We'll not let the concealed weapons in this area, this area, this area. They have to get approval for that, but they can create whatever policy they want. That's the way it's very vague.
So per campus, the students and the administrators are going to get together and figure out what parts of the campus people can conceal carry, which parts they can't. And it'll be different per campus. One of the differences, though, is that that's true for community colleges, that's true for 4-year public institutions, 4-year public colleges, but private colleges, so let's say, for example, Trinity, as opposed to UTSA, if they want to, they can opt out altogether, meaning they can just say, we don't want it. And what we're finding is, around the state, lots of public schools are opting out. So some of them,
Private schools.
Private schools, sorry. So private schools are opting out, but the public schools have to come up with a policy where they allow it somewhere.
Yeah,
She's had her hand
been behind it for a while, and then you're next.
Thank you. Yesterday, I got notification from someone that the libraries in the city of San Antonio will be able to have people to come in and have open carry. I have a problem with that when you've got children and you've got the elderly and you've got other college students and business people that go into the library. And I'm wondering, what kind of safety matter are you gonna do in order to keep these people from open carrying where there are children?
Since you're talking about a public building, let me
something along that line.
Talk about it.
My daughter goes to church. There's only one door going in. The only way to get out is through the front door. And she's seen what's happening on TV. And when I go to church, she says, "Dad, are you bringing a gun?" I said, "Yeah." Because if somebody comes in, blocks the front door, they're done.
Let's answer 2 questions, because she said that the library, they have to. I mean, they can't restrict it in a library, right? Under the law.
That's my
Under the law, so there's
understanding.
nothing that
That's
can be
coming
done
from
about that, regardless of, and I mean, the chief has his own personal opinion, we have our own personal opinions, again, but the law is the law, so that cannot be restricted. Churches have an option. My church, my pastor, and the elders made a decision to put 30-7 requirement, meaning they don't open carry, but you can conceal carry, because everybody conceals in our church anyway. And it's never been an issue. Don't come messing with our church, all right? So my pastor has made that decision. So but each church, we spoke at the faith-based community or group that we spoke at, and a lot of the churches don't want the ugly signs, and I get that. And they have to post them at the issue was each entrance, because you have to give notice to the public. So if we have 7 entrances, you have to do 7 notices. So every church is going to be different. So the churches are not on the restricted list anymore.
Sir, right here, and then we'll get back to you in the back.
For either the chief or the DA, going back to the schools, what about the homeowners that live across the street from schools and they open carry? How does that affect them?
As long as they don't go on school property.
There's that,
Or go inside the school.
or what is it that I read about public roadways? You're not allowed within so many feet on a public roadway if you're open carry?
No, no zones. Not even, no. They cannot go into the premise.
There's no zone.
So if you're in your home, you live across the street, and you're going to your car, and
Yeah.
you're open carry, you're fine.
Yes, sir.
Can already do that.
Sir, go ahead, and then we'll get back to you, because you already asked the question.
This young lady had a question.
Oh, right here, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do you mind at the end?
At the end, yeah, we'll do, well, here's some.
I think it's important that the panel mention that those of us that do open carry have been deemed by the state to be a proper citizen because we've gone through a background check. So it's good that you mentioned that. The other thing has to do with that, with open carry chief and the license. I'm from Indiana. Have you had training for the officers to recognize different carry permits or licenses?
If there's a reciprocal agreement with other states, then it's not an issue.
But do the officers know what to look for?
They'll be able to find out quickly enough
Okay.
through the dispatcher, yeah.
Okay, right here.
My question is for Chief. Chief, my name is Gabe Salazar, and you said there's some training that's being involved with your operators to respond. What about business owners? I can imagine already how difficult it would be for just a mom and pop business owner to confront an individual and say, you know what, I have my signs up, but you obviously don't know the law. what do you recommend to mom and pop business owners in regards to that confrontational moment? Is there a training that you're developing for instances like that?
We're not going out specifically training individual businesses, but forums
Can you
like
train me?
this-
Just tell me what you think.
Sure. Well, I think we
that's a
we
good
talked about it
question.
earlier. I think
I'll answer it.
Diego mentioned it earlier about, a lot of folks don't want to go up to somebody and say, hey, you can't come into my business if they're carrying a gun. So that's why these signs are one of the reasons why these signs are important for business owners to know that they can put these up and prevent people from going into their businesses.
Well, I think an even more specific question would be, do you recommend a business owner to confront an individual and say, hey, I got my signs up, you're breaking the law, and there could be a confrontation there. We don't know if that person is carrying legally, or would you recommend calling you and you coming out and handling that?
That's a personal choice that someone would make who owns a business, but there's always an option to call police. If it were me, that's the option I would take. I'd pick up the phone. They wouldn't even have to know it. Pick up the phone, call the police, have somebody in here who won't leave carrying a weapon.
Chief, do you mind if I told him I would respond to that question?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry, Chief.
I'd love to hear from you too. Thank you, sir.
Here's the deal. I think calling the police would be, if you have your signs properly put in your building,
Yes.
and people can notice them, and they follow the statute, and someone still ignores that, then they're in violation of the law technically, right?
Yes.
What I know, being around a lot of people that really value their right to carry open or conceal, to have their license, they protect that with all they have. They're not trying to be troublemakers. I mean, there's a handful of, let's just call it what it is. You're calling him a troublemaker? No, he's not. Mr. Briscoe's not a troublemaker. There's a handful of people out there trying to make a point. There's no need to make a point with us, because we're open. This is a very open dialogue. I'm always accessible. The chief is always accessible. So most people really value their rights, so they're gonna comply. No one's trying to lose their license. Because if somebody gets a charge, whether it gets dismissed later on, for that period of time, their license will be suspended while they're going through that situation. So most people would rather comply and then bring that issue up and then do what they need to do after that. So if you properly display your notices, I think the chief's advice was perfect. Just call law enforcement. They're trained to do this. They'll be professional, and then they'll take care of the situation.
Sir,
Thank you so
the back
much.
over here.
Mr. LaHood,
Yes, ma'am.
I
Yes, sir.
think it might allay people's concern to know that the offense rate for license holders, based on the most recent DPS data, is 0.3%. That's for all offenses. And that's a pretty law-abiding group of people.
Mr. Briscoe is accurate. And again, stats can say whatever you want, but we know stats on crimes, and that is an accurate stat. Look, most people are worried about criminals, so to speak, right? Worried about safety. A criminal, I'm talking about someone who's considered a quote criminal that everyone's worried about. I'm not saying people that have made poor choices in their past and they've changed their life, okay? But someone that deems themselves a criminal by definition does not follow what? The law. So they're not gonna follow the law anyway, right? So I think that's something to put in your mind. Most people